They said it was only a name. They said it was only a mark. But in Culiacan, a name, a mark, a whisper can become your chains. Late at night, behind locked doors, with candles flickering against trembling walls, young men gather. Not for wealth, though promises of that are loud, not for power, though power looms behind every bullet, but for belonging. In the shadows, they do more than swear allegiance. They adopt symbols, codes, hand signs. They accept debts. They enter rituals that demand memory, precision, silence. A single error, forget a line, misplace a symbol, speak a forbidden word, and they risk everything. Respect lost, loyalty questioned, life itself on the line. Outside, the city pulses with danger. Gunshots echo through the night. Ordinary people whisper through cracked windows. Politics trembles under invisible control. But inside this room, time freezes. The ritual begins. Slow, deliberate, sacred. This is how a soldier is born in Culiacan, not by training, but by code. Among the plazas and markets, whispers trace a name: Los Antrax, the Sinaloa Cartel's shadow unit. Enforcers known for their precision, their silence, and the unseen symbols that mark who belongs, and who must disappear. Murals hide messages. Tattoos burn allegiance into skin. Family members tell stories they shouldn't know. And in the middle of it all, rituals, oaths, and debts that never die. There are those who tried to leave, those who broke the code, but the code always collects. In Culiacan, even faith has two faces: Santa Muerte, the saint of death, and Jesus Malverde, the saint of thieves. Soldiers kneel before both, praying for protection, just before they spill blood. Across the city, graves appear where no one remembers digging. Families search. Mothers wander the desert looking for bones, each discovery another message, another warning. Their sons once swore the same oath. Online, the code spreads like wildfire. Hashtags glorify the soldiers. Songs praise their bravery. Social media becomes a battlefield of propaganda and fear, where a wrong comment can make you vanish by morning. Tonight, we open that door. We unfold the paper. We step inside the room where the first oath is sworn, where a tattoo becomes a vow, and a soldier becomes property. Because the question isn't what they swore, it's how long they can keep the oath when silence is the only law. By the end of this story, you'll see the hidden system no one dared expose, the rituals that shape loyalty, the codes that govern life and death, and how a city learned to live under its own shadow.
You are watching True Crime Cartel Originals. Before we dive into today's story, I've got one small favor to ask. If you love deep, real stories like this, tap the like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment below telling us which city you're watching from. It helps more than you know, and it allows us to keep bringing you stories no one else dares to tell. Now, let's get into the story.
To understand the rituals of the Culiacan soldiers, you first have to understand what Culiacan itself is. It isn't just a city, it's a code written in fear, loyalty, and survival. Long before the name Sinaloa Cartel became a global echo, Culiacan was already breeding a culture built around silence and debt. In the 1980s, when Colombian cocaine flooded the north, this city became the heart of the West Coast trade, the hidden capital of an empire run by men who spoke little and acted fast. They weren't politicians, they weren't generals, but their word was law, not written, not signed, spoken, and sealed in ritual. Every generation of cartel soldier learns the same lesson early. You don't just join, you are reborn. The oath isn't a membership, it's transformation. The first ritual, locals call it La Promesa, the the promise, starts in total darkness. The initiate must stand barefoot, surrounded by men who watch in silence. A candle is lit. The oldest soldier speaks a phrase that can't be recorded, a vow that binds them to la causa, the cause. Some versions of the ritual involve holy water mixed with tequila. Others use blood, a drop from each man in the room. It's a gesture meant to show unity and control. The moment the boy becomes property. When investigators from Mexico's Fiscalía General studied recovered cartel writings in 2017, they found phrases that echoed Catholic liturgy, prayers altered to mix redemption with violence. In the name of the Father, one began, and of the brotherhood that protects our path. Faith, family, and fear melted into one. In the neighborhoods of Tierra Blanca and Las Quintas, graffiti appears overnight. Black scorpions, Roman numerals, coded initials. Each symbol is a message. Who controls that block? Who pays tribute? Who is watching? These markings are not random. They are part of the internal map, the same coded network of signs used by soldiers to navigate territory, to identify allies, and to track betrayal. Recruits are taught that there are 3 layers of loyalty: loyalty to the boss, loyalty to the family, loyalty to the cause. The first can be broken if the boss dies. The second can fade with blood. The third, the cause, never ends. It's the oath that passes from one soldier to the next, even after the war changes faces. But what exactly is the cause? It's not written anywhere, not carved on walls or printed on banners. It's whispered that Culiacan's soldiers fight not just for profit, but for reputation. Reputation in the narco world is survival currency. It's what turns fear into protection. It's what keeps your family alive when you're gone. That's why rituals matter more than bullets. Bullets kill, but rituals immortalize. A soldier who dies without taking the oath is forgotten. A soldier who swears it, even once, lives forever in whispers. The next stage is called El Silencio. It's not a ceremony. It's a test. The recruit is ordered to vanish for 48 hours. No phone, no contact, no explanation. If the cartel calls and you answer, you fail. If your family panics and you respond, you fail. Only when you return to the same house where the ritual began, alive and unbothered. Do you earn a name? From that day, you're no longer a person. You're a code name. A shadow in a system where names are replaced with numbers, numbers replaced with signals, and death replaced with legend. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, the Anthrax group refined these initiations, mixing military discipline with psychological control. They learned that fear could be programmed, that silence could be trained, that a boy from the neighborhood could become a ghost in less than a week. Those who trained under El Chino Anthrax spoke of him with both loyalty and terror. He was known not just for violence, but for order. Every man under his command followed a ritual schedule. Wake at 5, train, pray, code, patrol. Each code message had to be memorized, not written. Every tattoo approved, every gesture rehearsed. Breaking that chain was like speaking against gravity. The deeper you go, the more the rituals start to look less like religion and more like control. A network designed not to create soldiers, but to erase men, to turn them into symbols. Symbols that can't be traced, can't be questioned, can't be killed. Every soldier in Culiacan learns early. Violence is not chaos, it's ceremony. Every act, from a killing to a burial, follows an unwritten script. There are steps, symbols, prayers, and witnesses. Because for the soldiers of the Culiacán Cartel, violence isn't just survival. It's devotion. They call it el acto sagrado, the sacred act. In this ritual, every detail matters. The direction of the fire, the order of the men, the placement of the weapon. The final prayer whispered before a trigger is pulled. It's not rage, it's order. It's not revenge, it's protocol. To outsiders, it looks like brutality, but to those inside, it's structure. Every cartel in Mexico uses violence, but in Culiacan, it's elevated, made ceremonial. Investigators describe scenes that repeat again and again, bodies positioned in specific patterns, objects arranged like offerings, coins, cigarettes, crosses, even beer bottles left beside the dead. These aren't coincidences, they're signatures. Each one says, "This was justice by the code." Locals whisper that before certain executions, a short prayer is spoken. Not to God, but to Malverde. "Take this soul, saint of the poor, and keep me from his fate." It's both a plea and a protection. The belief that killing with ritual protects the killer from being haunted by the dead. Psychologists who studied captured cartel members found something chilling. The ritual stripped away guilt. When every violent act is framed as sacred, morality dissolves. They don't see themselves as murderers. They see themselves as guardians of balance. Inside the brotherhood, violence has rules. A soldier can't kill without approval from a superior, known as El Padrino. The Padrino blesses the act by touching the weapon and marking it with a symbol, sometimes a cross, sometimes a number. That mark, once made, sanctifies the weapon. It becomes untouchable until its purpose is complete. Afterward, the gun is buried or burned, never reused. That is the law of El Arma Bendita, the blessed weapon. When soldiers are captured or killed, their brothers hold what's called la velación del silencio, the vigil of silence. No crying, no music, just candles, photos, and a shot of tequila poured into the dirt. The ritual serves two purposes: to honor the fallen and to remind everyone that speaking of the dead breaks the code. But violence doesn't just punish outsiders, it keeps insiders obedient. Every betrayal, every act of greed, every moment of weakness is answered through ritual. Some are made to kneel before their brothers and confess their sin aloud. Others disappear, their names erased, their symbols painted over. And then there are the public messages, the bodies left hanging from bridges, the banners with warnings, the videos. To the cartel, those aren't displays of brutality. They're sermons. Every image tells a story. This is what happens when the code is broken. Over the years, these displays became part of Culiacan's visual language. Children grow up seeing them. Adults learn to decode them without asking questions. It becomes normal, the way thunder follows lightning. In 2019, after the arrest and brief release of Ovidio Guzman Lopez, son of El Chapo, the city itself became a ritual of violence. Armed men flooded the streets, setting cars ablaze, blocking exits, rescuing their leader in broad daylight. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. Every convoy, every direction, every radio call followed preset codes drilled into soldiers for years. Culiacan wasn't attacked, it was activated. In the aftermath, people said the city had felt alive, as if something ancient had woken up. Because in that moment, the code wasn't just followed, it commanded. The soldiers didn't need orders. They moved like one body. That's what ritual does. It programs obedience so deep that when the signal comes, no one questions it, but every sacred order hides its curse. For some soldiers, the rituals begin to haunt them. Nightmares of the faces they buried, the sound of prayers they once whispered before pulling a trigger. A few turn to priests, begging for cleansing, for peace. But the church refuses them. "You swore an oath to another god," one priest said, "and now you must serve him." Violence in Culiacan, then, isn't random. It's religion in disguise. It's the belief that order must be maintained, even through horror. To outsiders, that sounds insane. But to those inside, it's the only truth that keeps them alive. Because here, faith and fear speak the same language. And the moment you understand that, you begin to see why no one ever truly escapes the code. In Culiacan, death doesn't end the story. It rewrites it. A soldier's last breath is never silence. It's the beginning of a new signal, a new code. Because here, the dead never leave. They just change their language. Locals call them los muertos presentes, the present dead, a phrase whispered in bars, on radio stations, even in corridos. The narco ballads that turn fallen gunmen into legends. Each song hides details, names, operations, warnings. A melody becomes a message. A lyric becomes a command. To the outside world, they sound like music. To the insiders, they are communication. El que cayó sigue hablando, they say. He who fell is still speaking. Every verse carries coordinates, references, reminders of who is owed and who is avenged. And through that, the dead remain active. Their words still moving soldiers. Their names still feared. There's a story told quietly in Culiacan of a young sicario who died on a Thursday and was buried by Friday night. His friends tattooed his initials behind their ears. But what mattered most wasn't ink. It was that, every year, on the night he died, his crew leaves his favorite tequila on a grave. 3 glasses, one for each survivor. They don't speak. They don't cry. They just pour. Rituals like this are not superstition. They are structure. They remind every soldier that even in death, the brotherhood watches. That fear extends beyond the grave. Some soldiers claim they still receive orders from the dead, through dreams, coincidences, or strange omens before missions. A sudden blackout, a flickering candle, a whisper before dawn. The line between fear and faith blurs completely. Journalists who've lived in Sinaloa long enough say you can feel it, that invisible weight in the air. The idea that no one ever really disappears. That loyalty, once sworn, binds both the living and the dead. There's a coded saying in narco culture, "Si muero por la causa, vivo en el nombre." If I die for the cause, I live in the name. It's that belief that fuels every act of loyalty, every silence, every sacrifice. Even when their leaders fall, the soldiers continue the ritual. They repeat the vows, play the songs, light the candles. The faces change. The code remains. It's why the Sinaloa Cartel has survived longer than most empires. Because its true weapon isn't violence, it's continuity. Every man replaced by another who knows the same code, speaks the same words, believes the same myth. The living become mirrors of the dead. Each soldier's story ends the same way, alone, in silence, surrounded by symbols. Yet in those final moments, they never feel alone, because the brotherhood they served never lets them leave. As one ex-member once said before disappearing, "They don't need to kill you to own you. They just need you to remember." And that is the final secret of the Culiacan Code. It's not written on paper. It's written on conscience. Once you've sworn it, even the grave can't take it back. Silence is the most expensive currency in Culiacan. You don't buy it with money. You buy it with loyalty and fear. Because once you know the rituals, Once you've heard the code, you can't unknow it. And that knowledge alone makes you dangerous, even if you never speak. A journalist who spent years investigating the cartel once said, "In Sinaloa, truth doesn't get buried. It just stops being spoken." Everyone in Culiacan knows the boundaries, which streets not to film on, which names not to repeat, which songs not to play too loud at night. They don't need soldiers to enforce silence anymore. The silence enforces itself. In some neighborhoods, children grow up reciting the saints before bed. Jesus Malverde, San Judas Tadeo. And then they whisper another name, one that isn't in any church. A name of a man who once ruled their street. It's not prayer, it's protocol. Even the police know the code. They respond slowly in certain districts, not because they don't care, but because they understand who truly governs the silence. A former officer once described it like this: "You hear the radio go quiet before something happens. That's how you know it's already too late." And in that silence, that moment before chaos, everyone holds their breath. For civilians, silence becomes survival. They live with two languages, the one they speak and the one they hide. One for the day, another for the night. A mother tells her son, "If they ever ask, you didn't see, you didn't hear, you don't know." It's not a choice. It's inheritance. Because the moment you break the silence, you're no longer invisible. And in a city where invisibility is safety, that's a death sentence. But here's the truth. The outside world never understands. Silence isn't always fear. Sometimes it's faith. Faith that tomorrow will come. Faith that someone will remember you without saying your name. The rituals, the songs, the candles. They're not just for the soldiers. They're for the living, too. A code that says, we endure, even when we can't speak. And yet, deep down, everyone in Culiacan knows silence may protect you, but it also owns you. There's an old saying painted under a bridge outside the city. El que calla, obedece. He who stays silent, obeys. It's a reminder to everyone who passes that silence, too, has a master. Culiacan has changed its skyline. The concrete has grown taller, the streets have grown wider, and the sounds of old engines have been replaced by the low hum of imported cars. But under all of that, the rhythm remains the same. Beneath the noise of progress, there is still that heartbeat, slow, steady, familiar. The pulse of a city that has learned to live with shadows and call them its own. Because here, history doesn't vanish. It mutates. Every ritual, every whispered oath, every coded prayer adapts, reshapes, and finds new life in the next generation. The new soldiers don't meet in dark rooms anymore. They meet in music studios, on encrypted apps, in designer restaurants where the walls are soundproof, and the loyalty is dressed in perfume and silk. They speak softly now, not with guns, but with signals hidden in music videos, coded emojis, or lyrics only insiders understand. The rituals didn't die. They just became modern. Every song, every beat that goes viral from Sinaloa carries a ghost in it. Behind the melody is a message. Behind the message is a memory. And behind that memory is a promise that was made decades ago in the dark. They sing about loyalty, betrayal, and the weight of a brother's name, not just for fame, but to keep the code alive. To outsiders, it's entertainment. To those who know, it's a scripture. You can see it in the streets, too. Teenagers wear chains with scorpion pendants, or tattoos of Roman numerals that mean nothing to the rest of the world. but everything to those who understand. The new generation doesn't always remember where the code began, but they live it instinctively, like breathing. The code is no longer written. It's inherited through rhythm, style, and silence. There's an older man who still sits outside a bar on Avenida Álvaro Obregón every Sunday. He doesn't drink anymore. He just listens. The new kids pull up in cars he's never seen, blasting music that mixes trap and corrido, English and slang. He smiles, not because he understands the lyrics, but because he recognizes the heartbeat underneath. It's the same rhythm he marched to years ago, the same rhythm that took his friends, his youth, his peace. And somehow, it still plays. In Culiacan, the code isn't passed through words. It's passed through habits, through the way someone looks over their shoulder before crossing a street, or lowers their voice when saying a name, through the way families leave candles lit all night, even when no one's praying. They don't call it fear anymore. They call it normal. And maybe that's what makes this story so tragic, that a generation can inherit silence and never know it wasn't meant to be theirs. Because silence can outlive people. It can pass through bloodlines, shape identities, define legacies. Culiacan today is a city of music and mourning, of celebration and ghosts. A city where you can attend a concert that sells out thousands of tickets and still feel that quiet echo between the beats. The echo of what was promised long ago. Loyalty, secrecy, and the sacred bond between brothers who never spoke their names aloud. The old soldiers are almost gone now. Their photos hang in bars, their names woven into lyrics, their faces carved into murals that fade under sun and rain. But their code, their true inheritance, remains untouched. The younger generation might not know where it came from, but they feel it every day. That weight of unspoken rules, that instinct to stay loyal, to stay quiet, to stay alive. The code isn't evil by itself. It's survival disguised as honor. A belief that promises power but demands everything in return. Your name, your freedom, your peace, your silence. And that's why it endures. Because it offers identity in a world that takes it away. It gives men who come from nothing a sense of belonging, a meaning larger than themselves, even if that meaning eventually destroys them. Somewhere tonight, a young man in Culiacan will whisper his first oath. He'll swear loyalty to a brotherhood he barely understands. He'll believe he's becoming part of something eternal. And in a way, he's right. Because the code, the secret language of the Culiacan soldiers, was never meant to end. It was meant to outlive them all. As the music fades, as the lights go out, as the city returns to its midnight calm, one truth remains unbroken. The code survives because it hides in plain sight. In the silence, in the rhythm, in the names no one says out loud. And when the last soldier falls and the last candle burns out, the code will still whisper through the walls of Culiacan, waiting for someone new to listen. The story of the Culiacan soldiers is not just about crime or violence. It's about a city that learned to live between myth and survival, where loyalty became law and silence became protection. For outsiders, it's easy to see only the chaos, the gunfire, the arrests, the names on international lists. But for those who live inside the heartbeat of Sinaloa, the truth is quieter, deeper, and harder to erase. Because the real power of the cartel isn't in its money or its weapons. It's in the stories people tell when no one's listening. Every corner of Culiacan still hums with those stories. The baker who once delivered bread to a safe house without ever asking who lived there. The taxi driver who turned up the radio every time the wrong song played. The mother who still lights a candle every night, even though her son has been gone for years. They all live inside the same code, unspoken, unwritten, and unforgettable. And maybe that's the real secret, that this code was never about dominance. It was about remembrance, about the promise that no one disappears completely, as long as their name is still whispered under the breath of the living. That's what keeps the code alive. Not rituals, not money, but memory. The human need to belong to something, even if that something is darkness. As the lights of Culiacan fade into the early morning and the city begins another day, the code breathes again, quiet, unseen, eternal. Every oath renewed in silence, every promise kept in the shadows. The soldiers may fall, the names may change, but the rhythm remains the same. The heartbeat of Sinaloa never stops. This was The Secret Rituals and Codes of the Culiacán Cartel Soldiers, a story of loyalty, faith, and silence, where even the dead still speak through those who remain. If you made it this far, you didn't just hear a story. You entered a world that wasn't meant to be told. And maybe that's the true power of stories like this one. They remind us that even in the darkest places, humanity still whispers through the cracks. If this story gripped you till the end, subscribe for more true cartel chronicles that reveal what most people never hear. Click the next video on your screen, where we uncover, inside the Sinaloa bloodline, the hidden power behind the Narco empire. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, in Sinaloa, even silence has a story.